Hello and welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast. I have got a guest that I've been trying to get for absolutely ages, but she's so busy and in demand. I see her everywhere. So I am so excited about speaking to our next guest. Voted top 15 business growth expert to watch, a top 40 motivational speaker, Meridith Elliott Powell is an award-winning author, keynote speaker who helps her clients learn the strategies they need to turn uncertainty into competitive advantage. Welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast, Meridith.
Thank you. I am excited to be here.
Now, tell me more about turning uncertainty into competitive advantage.
Well, so that's really my whole, I speak about sales, I speak about sales leadership, but really my area of expertise is how do you take this whole idea of uncertainty and make it work for you? I wonder if you've had this experience or anybody listening, but I would work with my clients and I would talk to them about how's business. And the typical answer I would get is business is great. Business is really good. In fact, we are about to have our best year on record. But this uncertainty, as if uncertainty was always a negative, it was always a bad thing. It was this thing that was going to drop from the sky and completely stop your business from growing. And it just made me start thinking, what if we flipped the script on that? What if we started to think about uncertainty as opportunity rather than obstacle? And I started to look for organizations and leaders who had done that. There aren't many, but those that have do business in a very different type of way. And it's fascinating. They don't worry about change coming. They actually use it to gain market share, to close more deals, and to attract better talent.
It's interesting. Do those leaders have a different mindset? Because we all live in the same world. Do they have a vision of the world that's different? How do they cope with that uncertainty that they're able to lead an organization and really see it as an opportunity?
Well, you really nailed it when you said mindset, because that is the first step you've got to take, is you've got to get a hold of that thing that sits right up there and really start to begin to think of it as opportunity rather than obstacle. And the way that they do that is, here's the thing is, we all know change is coming, right? Nobody listening to this podcast thinks this change thing is over. In fact, we all know that if we fast forward to this time next year, you and I were talking about Christmas next year, we know that we'll be using different technology. We'll be watching different things. The economy will be different. Technology will be different. Our technology will be different. So the idea is, if you know all those things are going to be different, if you know that's going to change, why don't you start to condition yourself for change? Why don't you start to brainstorm and think about the changes happening so you have more lead time to those things? So you can start to say, if this is going to be different down the road, what could I do now to prepare for it?
Yeah, even if you don't know what is going to be different, but you're anticipating there is going to be a difference. It puts you in, I suppose, in a state of readiness, doesn't it?
Exactly. I liken it a lot to health. I mean, people who stay healthy, like they exercise, they eat right, you could have something happen to you, but you're in better shape for what happens to you, and you can move through it more easily. It's the same thing with business. We don't have a clue what's going to happen, but if you condition your team for change, if you're conditioned for change, then you're ready and you flow through it more easily. It's just not a big deal. And in fact, you start to see the positive in it. And that's where the competitive advantage comes in.
I think that's a really good analogy, in that, you embrace change, but also if you're completely unfit, then, if you think of companies that are sticking with the old paradigm, I'm thinking like traditional sales, and they're still flogging products. Yeah. They're unfit for the environment that's we're in now. So it's really difficult for them to make all of those changes and go through from, product-centric to solution-centric to now customer-centric. It's going to take a long time to really get fit. but those that are actually always adapting and, you know, evolving, and, you know, every day they're pumping their weights, or they're running, they're training for the, it's a lot easier for them to just do the kind of marginal development, and, you know, continue to kind of keep up with these changes.
Yeah, I'll give you a great example. I was working with a client that we were going through the process with their sales team, that every quarter we would talk about, every 3 months, we'd just brainstorm. Let's talk about what's changing with technology, competition, customers. And what we started to see was 2 of their biggest competitors were getting ready to merge. And we saw it 6 months to 9 months ahead. We completely changed our prospect list to focus on their customers, because we knew their customers were going to go through pain when that merger happened.
Yeah.
And the sales team moved like that, and we were able to take so much of their customer base because we were paying attention to what was happening outside of our traditional sales team. There's serious opportunity out there, but you have to be prepared for it ahead of time.
Right, right. So tell me more about your next book.
So, so as you can start to tell, and you'll tell by the themes of talking to me, I write books based on what my customers' pain points are. And this book was the same. It's called Who Comes Next? Leadership Succession Made Easy. Because one of the biggest challenges organizations have today is not only finding talent, but who is going to take over the sales team? Who is going to take over the company? Who are going to be our next, our next leaders? We've got a real void in our organizations. And part of it makes me think, because when 2008 happened, which is unbelievably was a while ago, but we really got so tight with our companies. We stopped training and developing. We were just trying to survive. And now here we are 10 years later, we've got a whole group of people ready to retire and nobody there to take their place. So I wrote this book as a traditional succession planning book, but at the same time, no matter the positions in your company, you could lose a top salesperson tomorrow. You better have the right person there to take their place. And so it's a very simple succession planning book, how you can create leadership development throughout your organization.
I wonder if the way that we trained up and invested in our talent 20, 15 years ago, the way that we do that in today's environment, and we were just talking about competitive advantage and remaining relevant, are there differences? Do we do it in the same way, or do we have, is there a new method in order to bring up this new talent to make sure that they're not only able to replace the existing leadership, but actually they're able to do it better, faster?
Yeah. Well, that is kind of the rub, right? I mean, they're going to be leading in an organization that is very different than the leader who's training them is leading in. I do think there are a lot of differences. I mean, number one that makes me laugh now, I mean, I remember when I started in sales and my company would send me to a 5-day training class. I would go from 8 in the morning until 5 o'clock at night, and it would just be an intensive. We don't do that anymore. I mean, training is much better in short bursts. You have online options. You have a lot of mentoring and a lot of coaching. But I think one of the biggest challenges that we've got to think about is how different the different skill sets that younger people need. They certainly don't need the technology training that I need, but what they do need are the in-person people skills, those types of things. So I do think the training is different, and I think to do a lot of it and in short spurts is important.
You were just talking about millennials, the way that they communicate is different, but the tools that we use are different. But surely that they're also talking to or working with other millennial leaders as well. So actually they're speaking the language of their customers anyway, because their customers look and feel a bit more like them. So I want to talk to you about diversity.
Yes.
And diversity in sales, and diversity leaders being more diverse than they are now. What do you think what is your perspective?
Well, my perspective is that it is, when I work with organizations and I work with sales teams, I think diversity is something that's highly important to them because you need to look like your customer base. I mean, if you are trying to attract certain customers and you don't have people on your team who look like them, you are sending a strong signal that says, I don't understand you. I'll give you a great example. Uh, my husband has a group of investors that are all where his money is invested, all white males. Now, my husband is 10 years older than I am. The chances that he will pass before I pass and I inherit that, I will move out of there so fast. Not because they're not nice, not because they're not kind, not because of any of that, but they signal to me every day. I mean, my goodness, it is 2020 and you don't have a single female on the leadership team, not one. So, but it's interesting. I get a lot of pushback with that. I have a client that I just finished working with that it's the same thing. I really encouraged him, the majority of people that are going to buy from them are going to be of another race and are going to be female, and they don't have a single representative on their team. And he just thought I was crazy and put another person that's like-minded. So my feeling on diversity is I don't care, what your team looks like. You need to look like your customer base. You need to think about looking like your customer base because that's what it's going to take to attract. You can't understand your customer if you don't have their voice at the table.
That's really, does your husband know that you're
Absolutely. I mean, you know what? Here's the thing: is he not only knows it, but he gets it. He understands it. I mean, it doesn't seem crazy to him at all. And so, he understands it.
I thought that's quite funny. It's quite frightening. I'm part of the all-party parliamentary group Women in Enterprise. The government has various groups when they bring in expertise, and we were writing various reports, and we were looking at access to finance and venture capitalists. And it is astounding. We had the Rose Review in the UK, where the Alison Rose looked at what's the percentage of the pot that women get, women in business, and it's astounding. It's about 1% of venture capitalists will invest in female businesses. 1%. I mean, it may be 1 point whatever, but it's such a tiny, it may be even 0.03%. It's just a ridiculous figure. There are more venture capitalists that are men, but there are a lot of great female businesses. So, it's absolutely astounding when you start to really kind of unpick the figures there.
But, that's where things stand now, but you've got to look at $41 trillion of intergenerational wealth is going to transfer in the next 10 to 20 years, and it's going to transfer into the hands mostly of women. So where those figures sit right now is not going to be where they sit, or not going to be where they sit in the future. However, I do think that that we, especially as women, we need to work hard to make sure we hold on to that money and we invest that money well.
Yeah. So, what is your tried and tested strategy to scale your sales? And I know that you've got such a wealth of experience. One will be really difficult, but give us one.
Well, I'm going to give you my favorite, and I do believe it's the reason that successful people in sales remain successul. And that is the power of your network. I really believe if you build your network, you change your life. And at the end of the day, it is not only a who you know world, but also who knows you. And you've got if you want to be successful at sales, networking has to be a very strong strategy for you. You've got to be connected to, we're always only one person away from somebody who can help us solve a problem, gain a new client, get the job that we want. So for me, the fastest way I scale anything is by being connected to the people who can help me get there.
I love your book title, the best sales book ever. That's, I love that. I love that confidence, which is, but tell me more about the balance today between being people focused, whether you're B2B, B2C, you know, looking at the people and then looking at the technology that can give you the competitive advantage, you know, how do you balance that out when you're talking about competitive advantage? Is it in the people or is it in the technology?
Yes. So I do quite a few courses for LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Learning has an online learning platform, and I'm one of their authors. And I find this fascinating that the course that they asked me to do that's gotten pushed the most was soft skills for sales professionals. And so this is a technology company, but it was the most requested. It was the most requested course from corporations. So what I want to say is I think technology makes us more efficient. I love the fact that I can get up in the morning, I can get a cup of coffee, I can reach out on LinkedIn or send a couple of emails and connect with people. But you have to remember that technology is the method. It is always, always, always a people business and always emotional. So don't use technology, I wouldn't reach out to you if I'd never met you and ask you to buy my product or service, because I wouldn't walk into a room and just say, hey, buy my product or service. So technology, I love the fact that it makes me so much more efficient. I love customer relationship management systems because I don't know how I would remember that stuff without it. But at the end of the day, the only thing that is closing a deal, the only thing that is moving anything forward is me and my ability to connect, listen to, and really solve the problems of my customers.
So I'd love to talk to you all day, but unfortunately we're running out of time. So tell me, who is your hero or shero?
Oh goodness, gosh, I have so much. But when it comes to sales, I'm in a group called Women Sales Pros, which is a group that was started by Jill Konrath. And Jill Konrath, if you're in sales, is kind of legendary in sales with women. And the reason she's my shero right now is because she's built her career, she's done it, she's done everything, but now she is creating an opportunity. She wants to see more women in sales because it is such a great opportunity for us. And she's really dedicating herself to make that a path for women and to make women successful in sales.
I'm hoping to get her on the podcast. As you say, she's a legend.
She is a legend, and I'm going to be speaking at an event where she is. I'll say something to her.
Oh, please do.
Yeah.
Please
yes.
do.
Yes.
So how can listeners get hold of you, Meridith?
Well, I would love if listeners would get a hold of me, because I really do mean build your network, change your life. So please reach out. You can find me on all the social media channels. I tend to live a little bit more on LinkedIn, but please reach out in email. You can find me at my website, valuespeaker.com. It's just the word value and speaker.com.
So thank you so much. I'm going to be putting all of those links and more in the show notes, but it's been an absolute honor, and I'm going to get you on this again. I would
love that. Let's definitely do that again. I would love it.
We got so much to talk about, and you've written so many books that we haven't even mentioned, and I know that you're launching one soon and another at the end of the year. So actually I could just do all of my podcasts just on You are prolific. So thank you for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.